Startups can be crazy fun, in an insane sort of way. In fact, it's an insane thing. Maybe we are all insane.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. And if you're listening to this show and you get value out of it, please share this with at least 3 people today. Share it with 3 people today, because that's the only way we grow and help more people. We don't advertise. We don't do anything. This is with your help, and I'm asking for it right now to share this with 3 people. And especially for all of your female friends today, because if you know anything about me and have listened to my show, I am a huge proponent of women, especially women in business. And I have a treat for you today, because I'm speaking with a writer, author, and speaker that was a happy freelancer that turned that into a successful entrepreneurship role. But here's the kicker: as a single mom. So if you're listening today, you know a single mom, or you are a single mom, this show is for you, because today I have Jan Cavelle. How are you?
I am great. Thank you very much. Thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I hope your intro did you some service, and portrayed my excitement so much, because I'm just a single mom who decides to just jump into this craziness that we call entrepreneurship. A lot of people think that people like you and me are insane to begin with, right? That we have a screw loose.
Right.
But then here you are in this situation that most would say that you're just doomed for failure from the start, right? And how did you feel? Where was that shift for you to where you're like, I'm jumping into this? And were you a single mom when you made that decision?
I was, yeah, absolutely. I was not a new mom in that my kids were sort of 8 and 5. But I was a newly single mom and newly absolutely really, really broke. I was on sort of social support and struggling, to put it mildly. And, my options were really limited to provide for the children. It was a question of, do I go out to work and then there's daycare and, always there's fortune? Or do I just stay on social forever and ever and not be able to do all that much for them? Or do I try and start something to generate a better life for us? And initially that was just literally me at home trying to do a bit of a sales operation to put food on the table optimistically in the beginning. No desperately exotic ideas at that point, but just to be able to keep us together, really.
Yeah, I hear you. I can relate to that a bit too, because my twins were born when I jumped into entrepreneurship. I was a new dad when this happened, and the struggle, when they say, hey, to make money to put food on the table, that's a real thing. That's a very real thing to think about, especially when you're caring for other human beings that can't care for themselves.
Definitely. It's a huge responsibility, and you've got nobody to fall back on, and you've got, this limited amount of money to feed them, and you are sort of, working out how to stretch a cauliflower in 5 different ways or whatever, and it's really tough.
We'll put your secret recipes in the show notes on how to stretch a cauliflower into 5 different ways, okay? That sounds like a new book you should write, Jan.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I don't know where that came from, but it's a good title. I shall try.
It really is a good title. See how these things happen. I like that.
Excellent.
So you were a happy freelancer. That's how you write yourself before you turned into an entrepreneur. What's the difference really between a freelancer and an entrepreneur to you? Because there has to be if you're calling yourself 2 different things.
Yeah, I guess, I think planning to have a proper business that is going to stay around for a while is a bit more than I was doing as a freelancer. When I was freelancing in my late teens and early 20s, I have to say that I was just avoiding doing a job and just getting some money to go to the pub with or whatever, And there were no great, I'm going to have a business forever and ever. So, there were very few restraints on freelancing in those days. I mean, I know you've got the same thing as we have over here, a lot of tightening up on freelancers going on at the moment. In those days, you could freelance, would just think of doing something today, do it for a few weeks, drift off and, do whatever, do some selling for a few people or, sell sandwiches or whatever. And you do all these things and, then put it vaguely together at the end of the year with some receipts and sort of into a plan. And that was roughly all the red tape there was to it. It was a terribly free of responsibility life, which I loved. I was 19, 20, it was not too long, and I could save up and go traveling,
Sure. It sounds like the freelance thing, it's almost like you're just going from gig to gig and all you're really concerned about is like the next gig. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. And even if need be, if I could put enough money together to go traveling sooner, so it was always balanced because, I wanted to do lots of things. I was still free, single and childless. So, enjoyment was high on the list.
For sure. I hear you, because as an entrepreneur, you almost kind of suppress the enjoyment, right? To a certain level, because you're like, oh, the hardship, bring it on.
Yeah, there's certainly a certain amount of that. Though I have to say, in the first 10 years I had the business, or maybe year 2, shall I say, to year 10, I had a whale of a time. We had so much fun. And it was later on as I tried to scale it and to some extent scale it, but it did definitely not become fun.
Yeah.
But startups can be crazy fun, in an insane sort of way. It's quite this insane thing. Maybe we are all insane.
I think we are a bit, but at the same time, I think there's almost a certain level of insanity to want to try to help so many people. Because it's outside of the norm of thinking, right? Because if you're doing a job, you've got your family that you might care for if you have a family working during the day, and that's about it. But we're always, as entrepreneurs, we're typically focused outside of ourselves. Would you agree?
Yes, I do. You have to be. There's so many people and factors to take into account, from your customers, your people who are working for you, or your subcontractors, or people at home, and it's one of the dangers, isn't it? You get lost along the way.
It sure is, and you start to diminish your own self-care in the process. Yes. So I've been guilty of that so many times. Oh,
me too. You have as well.
Yeah.
With kids, it must be such a challenge.
Yeah, they turned 14 yesterday, my twins, so I started this 14 years ago, and my youngest is 11, and it's just it's been a fun ride, and it's been awesome to see them see the trajectory that I've been on too. How do your kids feel about what you've done? Because they were 8 and 5 at the time. It's been probably a couple years since then, at least.
Yeah, it's just a few. I'm not even going to do the maths, but quite a few. I think, they've both gone on to be very career-minded, very independent people. One's got their own business, one's gone off to Australia to lead a new life, and, despite the fact we run up enormous hours on Skype or wherever. But I think the bits of them that would have rather had a normal family, I think, if I was going to be dead honest. But equally, they've obviously inherited those traits, which has given them an independence, which I'm glad about, whatever they think.
Oh, sure.
It gives them that choice of where to go in life.
For sure. How do you think they felt in the thick of things? Especially because they were 8 and 5 at the time. Let's pretend that they were 15 and 12 now. In that age to where obviously they have quite an independent attitude, and and here's mom doing all these things, right? How did they fare during that time period of their lives and yours?
An interesting question. I think they were fairly troubled, I think, and had a hard time in comparison to a lot of kids coming to terms with life in different ways.
Yeah.
They're quite different, but equally were competing for their own voices and their own spaces. And in some ways, it's hard to. By that time, I was beginning to build a business and beginning to get sort of on a smallish scale, quite well known. And it was quite a big umbrella for them to try and find this independence, though they did manage it. I think they were bucking trends to try and get out from under the umbrella quite a bit from an early teenage year.
For sure. And there's so many more options because they see here's a mom, here's our mom who's so very independent, and I'm sure my kids look at me in the same way, but I try to involve them in a lot of what I'm doing too, just to keep them. They're very interested in what I'm doing, but I understand, because it's a different life period, and it's definitely a different life that you and I live and all entrepreneurs live, to try to incorporate family into what you're doing. And still at the same time achieve this mission, because like we were talking, an outward focusedness that we have, it's not even just about our family, it's about everybody else, because we've got employees that we take care of, that we feel responsible for. So if there's not revenue coming in, it's the questions, how am I going to make payroll? Because yes, my family is first and foremost, for sure, first and foremost, but then it's like an extended family. It's like, well, all of my team, all of my employees have kids too. So if there's something that I do where I mess up, that's going to have this ripple effect down the line, and I'm affecting so many people in a negative way. So let's try to figure out how we mitigate that, because now it's just not one set of teenagers. There's like 18 sets of teenagers that are looking at me.
You remind me, I had a stage when I was growing this business, and I guess there were sort of 30, 35 of us by that time on the payroll. And somebody suggested organising a day's fishing. Well, I don't fish, but, with a barbecue and, a few beers and socialising and bringing families. And, it sounded a lovely idea. But, they were organising it. So I came along after it started. And I've rocked up to these two sort of fishing ponds, series of fishing ponds. And there were people everywhere. And children, I couldn't even count how many children. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I just thought, this all rests on my shoulders. About all these people and all these kids who are going to be homeless, in trouble, or whatever, if I don't make a success of this. And it completely did my head in. Far worse, actually, than when I was just starting, because that was just, I've got to do my kids.
Yeah.
But it's just huge, as you say, so many people to be responsible for.
For sure. Oh, I tell you, Jan, all these thoughts and emotions that are coming up now too, just thinking about that, because I'm starting to feel that weight even as we talk, and we're taking some big jumps, right? And moving a lot into even greater things this year, like multiple hundreds of millions of revenue is the type of business that we're building now with acquisitions and everything. And now it's like it's almost kind of like I feel like I'm adopting more kids in that aspect too, because as we acquire companies, like there's two right now, right, that we're in diligence with, and going to close soon, and there's those right now that I'm looking at the people that are coming with them, and they have families now too, so it just keeps going bigger and bigger. It's like adopting these people and being responsible for more and more, but then also helping them understand that, well, there's mutual responsibility that exists here. So I'm just going to tell them to come talk to Jan. Is that okay?
Of course.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's fascinating that, but that's how you feel as well. It's such a connection, right? Because I absolutely get it.
Yeah, I hear you. One thing that's really cool about you that my team dug up, and I don't even think this was on your intake form, right? You were chosen to be one of the first 50 female entrepreneurial ambassadors. Wow.
I know, chosen.
Normally I'm pretty good with my diction, but that one got me today, and I've said entrepreneurial a million times. See, there, it just rolled off my tongue again. But anyways, you were chosen to be one of the first 50 female entrepreneurial ambassadors to represent the UK and Europe.
Well done. You got it. Yes, I was. Thank goodness I don't have to say it again.
So, yes, first, that's incredible. Congratulations. And what was that like?
It was an amazing experience. There was me, and I hadn't, as you gathered by now, I had serious business experience. I didn't come from corporate world or anything like that, and never expected to have a decent sized business. So, all of a sudden being selected for this things, somebody got hold of my name and from a local group of high-flying businessmen and put me forward. I don't know how it happened, but I was chosen, but I did anyway. And the government selected 50. They selected more later on, but they chose this first 50. And we were charged with getting the sort of word of entrepreneurship out there. Because at this stage over here, we were slower than the States about catching on to entrepreneurship. And it wasn't that well known. They were only just starting TV programs or anything talking about entrepreneurship as opposed to business. And, nobody thought it was possible for them. It wouldn't have occurred to people. Well, it still wasn't in some parts of Britain, but unfortunately, we seem to be reversing. But it doesn't strike anybody at 15 that they could actually have done this journey. So we were particularly charged with talking to schools and colleges and business groups and putting it as an option. I mean, it's not for everybody, but actually saying, you could do this.
Yeah.
Look at me, you could do it. And, so that was exciting. And seeing, some light bulb moments come on. And we also went to the European Parliament and met up with our sort of fellow people in all the other countries that we got a feel of how they did entrepreneurship and how they approached it, which was culturally fascinating. I remember one of my strongest memories, which was quite strange, was, it could have been complete coincidence. I don't know if it was reflective of the culture or not, but there was all of us, this sort of huge chunk of the European Parliament being taken up by women only. And the contingency from Albania, apparently the speaker had lost their voice and they had to have their husband in there to speak for them.
Wow.
I thought, did she really? Really interesting. That was a while ago. But yeah, it was fascinating looking at all the other countries and hearing the different challenges. And from that I became more involved with other business groups encouraging enterprise in Britain, and also with another one for women called the Global Influence Forum, I think it's called, which again operates on a global basis, encouraging women's voices, which is a great honor to be involved in things like that.
For sure it is. No doubt. So when you were speaking to these groups of people and you're saying, hey, I'm just like you, if I can do it, you can do it. Do you ever notice sometimes that it's a little bit more difficult to be relatable to them? Because at some point in time, you've achieved a certain level of success, right? And the people you're meeting in that moment have seen nothing about you up until that point in time. None of the struggles, none of the being the single mom, none of having the 8-year-old and 5-year-old when you launched this. How did you make yourself relatable when you were encouraging everybody?
I think it was a real challenge, I think, for lots of reasons. I probably failed quite often. I think it was easier when I got out to more national business groups or further away from where I was based, because where I was based with the company I had, it was a very industrial area and very unionized and very masculine dominated, but the women were sort of in very British terms, her inside.
Yeah, not quite your premium audience, right?
Yeah.
For what you're doing, yeah.
You know, and so while I was probably odd to start, well, odd in lots of ways to start with, but, you know, odd for most of the time doing this, you know, I was even odder there than anywhere else, you know, and people didn't get it, didn't relate, I don't think, at all to understand it or where on earth I'd come from.
Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, you know, with, and it's almost like a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of like Morpheus, right? And saying, here, take the red pill or the blue pill. Yeah. And there's a lot that want to take the blue pill and just want to go back and live the life. But it doesn't stop me at all, because I know that for every 100 blue pill takers that I find, I'm going to find 1 or 2 red pill takers, and that's really what I'm going after, you know, because it's which is awesome, because and even these two groups have very synergistic effects too, you know, because if we have the crazies like us, we need some of the same people around, you know,
True.
in some ways or another, but yes,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, we do. But you're also right in saying it is incredibly rewarding. I remember doing a small group of this sort of thing setting it up in the local town, and I'm thinking, you know, this is crazy because we're probably just bashing our head against a brick wall. But, you know, I got some business people I knew from the county to come in and, you know, to be available as possible mentors, and invited anybody in the area to come along with any business ideas. And incredibly, you know, that very first evening we opened it, you know, there was a business there who were planning to start a repair business for mobile phones. You know, which I think was specifically iPhones, but cheaper than you could get your Apple to do it. A dealer to repair your phone for, so, you know, very popular thing to get done. And ironically, I'd asked a mentor who was into that sort of thing, and he invested, and the thing took off from that evening. And, you know, you were thinking, you know, and I watched him start employing people, and you were thinking, wow, you know, just to have done that, you know, I've done something worthwhile in my life to have been able to pass that on. That's incredible.
That is incredible. So somewhere along here, I was reading, and correct me where I'm wrong here, that you had this amazing entrepreneurial journey, and then you went back to being a writer, right?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I got to the stage, I think this is one of the interesting things about entrepreneurship that people don't talk about, that, of course, you start off all filled with enthusiasm, and you might be in your 20s or whatever. And if you hang on to it, because not everybody has a sensible exit plan, you can get to the stage of burning out or, you know, wondering what you're doing anymore. Oh, wait, sorry, that's my antivirus, which is saying restart now, restart later. I do beg your pardon.
No problem. My primary business is cybersecurity, so it fits, right? Oh, yeah. There we go.
I'm safe.
Restart later. No, we never tell our clients that.
It was 6 hours ago. But yeah, where were we? I mean, it's terrifying.
You were talking about, it's interesting, you know, that there's a certain point, if you don't have and this, you've caught my attention big time, because if you don't have a sensible exit strategy, you will burn out.
Yeah. And particularly for me, I mean, you know, I'd fallen into this business not with a great love of manufacturing, it must be said. I mean, I never thought, wow, I must be a manufacturer, you know, so I was doing it for the children, and I came to love the people who worked there in the early days and care for them and their families, you know, but once it had got bigger and everything else, the kids had left home. I didn't have that why anymore.
Yeah.
And I kept on thinking, this is a sensible thing to do. I must go to work today. Oh, I don't want to. I really don't want to. Of course I must, but don't big say, pull yourself together. And, you know, that's a recipe for burnout, if nothing else. So, yeah, in the end, it just got all too much.
Sure.
It was after 20 odd years, so I had a good run.
I don't know if I'd call it giving up. I would say that it's more like a transition back, right? Or transition forward into something, because that's when you wrote Scale for Success, right?
It was a little bit after that. I mean, I was severely burnt out, so I sort of did absolutely nothing for a few months. But then I'd been writing articles, which I loved. I'd always wanted to be a writer when I was a kid. And so, I'd been writing these articles for stress relief, really, for a digital business publication for years. And, so when I had more time, I thought, well, I'm not missing a business, but, shall I just retire? I don't think I'm ready for that. And then I thought I could write. I've always wanted to, so why don't I give the idea of my childhood dream of writing a book a go? And really, it took me a while because I wasn't quick about it to work out, but logically, the thing I knew about was business, and with the entrepreneurial stuff I'd done, a business book to help other people, was a pretty good guess to where to start. So yeah, I started off with this thing and decided to see what I could do. And to my amazement, I'm published by Bloomsbury, which is
that's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations on that. That's phenomenal. So where do you go from here?
There you can help me. I don't know.
Like, why are you doing podcasts? Why are you guesting on podcasts?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, I can, I'm still talking about the book. Hopefully it'll be around for a little while longer. It's not out in the States till next week when we're speaking. So possibly will be out by the time anybody's listening. But, hopefully it will be around a bit longer. And I think there's some amazing wisdom in the book, not from me necessarily, but I had a lot of help from brilliant entrepreneurs who will just share astounding stuff. And, I really think that's going to help people. I hope it is, as well as entertain them. And so I'm going to try and get the message of that out for a little while yet. But yeah, it's going to have to be what to do with five cauliflower, a cauliflower 5 ways for a little bit.
That's your next book. We came up with it on the show. Yes. Split a cauliflower 5 ways. Well, Jan, your book is Scale for Success, and that's in the U.S. as of July 6th. Correct?
You're absolutely right. Yes, Tez.
Phenomenal. And where everybody can find you is on Twitter at Jan Cavelle. Do you pronounce it Cavelle?
Cavelle.
I'm sorry. Jan, Cavelle. I was looking at that, yeah. And your website is jancavelle.co.uk.
That's it on. Yeah.
I'm so excited for this to come out, and I can't wait to see some of these things that you're writing about. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. It's been fascinating, and I'm full of admiration for you having twins. I think that's amazing. I don't know how you cope with 2 at once.
At that point in time, it was just, I didn't know any better because they were the first, so you just did. And they were boy, girl, and I couldn't have asked for anything better, for real. Yeah, but thank you for being vulnerable today, too, and opening up. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people who are going through some of the things that we went through. Thank you for being on.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed chatting to you.